Welcome to Black Conscious, the Conscious Movement. Um, Today the topic I really wanted to talk about was, this article I saw on Media Takeout, and it's pretty much in every site out there, but I just happened to read it on Media Takeout this time. It stated 15 people were shot at Chicago funeral. At the Chicago funeral, 15 people were shot, and Trump to send in federal agents to that location. Chicago police announced this morning that 15 people were shot while attending a funeral last night. According to a report, the gunman pulled up on a funeral being held for a 31-year-old man who was fatally shot last week and opened fire with automatic machine guns. The victims were ranging between 21 to 65, including 10 women and 5 men. 6 of the injured remain in serious condition. Wow. And 2 of the injured women are 27, and at least one of them was shot in the chest. Police said a 25-year-old woman was shot in the buttocks, and a 38-year-old woman was also wounded, the Chicago Tribune reported. Other victims included a 40-year-old man shot in the chest, arm, and forearm, and 2 men again, aged 32 and 22. Respectively, were shot in the hand, the news report claimed. According to police, a black car pulled up outside of the funeral and goons jumped out and started shooting up the funeral. People at the funeral returned gunfire as the car pulled off. The car eventually crashed a block away and the occupants fled on foot. President Donald Trump is already talking about this incident. This morning he told Chicago Mayor Lightfoot that he plans to send federal troops to get control of the city. Wow. This is embarrassing. It's embarrassing because the energy that we're putting in, black folks are putting into, Black Lives Matter, and talking about, I was just talking about this not too long ago, the defunding of police officers in these same neighborhoods that they're calling the police whenever they need them. Remember, I just read a few minutes ago, it's the police stated what happened. When people were shot, who did they call? They called 911. They called the police. They came in to take out information, write down information, etc. All of this has happened in the black neighborhoods. Mind you, killing and other things do happen in other neighborhoods too, But regardless of whether it's greater or smaller, my focus is on the black neighborhood. So the fact that we're always talking about, every time somebody mentions about black crime, or some people say black on black crime, some say even, it doesn't even exist. It should be called, crime in general. Fine, whatever we want to call it. We'll just call it black on black crime in this case. It's wrong, absolutely wrong, no matter what. Whether black or black crime is 2 million, 5 million, or even 100,000, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't be happening. Well, I don't know why we have to compare statistics. Because white people kill each other far more the same rate, therefore, black on black crime is an aspect of poverty. No, it's not. This is not just about poverty, because crime does happen, but it's not just about poverty. Sometimes it's about greed as well. Because we want to talk about just poverty. Go in, I don't know if most of you have traveled or not, but I've traveled around the world. And I've traveled to some third world countries. Well, if you want to talk about poverty, you can see real poverty. People that are really poor, that don't have that much. Yet, amazingly enough, crime is not that high in those countries. They might have crime, but it's not at the level that we have it. People don't go around shooting. Well, some people say, that's because they don't have access to guns. Maybe, but they have access to knives and other things as well too. So like I said before, a lot of these crime things that are happening are not because of poverty. Yes, poverty does happen in these neighborhoods, and that's part of it, but it's not always about poverty. Greed is essentially part of it as well too. These young men, some of them are not selling drugs because of poverty. there are some opportunities out there. There's no reason for anyone to say they're hungry, even in America, because there are places that one can go if you're hungry, and we have far more opportunities in this country than any other place, regardless of the racism and stuff like that. If you go to other countries, trust me, it's way worse. So, but what happens? A lot of these people, young men or young women, want to go out there selling, their bodies and stuff like that to get more money. You know what I mean? Or young men out there selling drugs. They're not selling drugs because of, to get food to eat. Of course not. They're selling drugs because they want that expensive stuff. I always say, the expensive jewelry, the expensive car, the expensive, stuff. Maybe they can get hot, attractive women to be, attracted to them, etc. To have the good, they watch all these movies like Power and all these other, movies that they see, narco movies and stuff, and they assume, well, these guys have a lot of money, I can make money too. You know what I mean? And that's a fact. So a lot of that is a problem. This killing that's going on back and forth in these neighborhoods, especially in Chicago and Detroit and Boston and other places, is sickening. And this has nothing to do with the police. Yes, I always stated that there's two black on black, Black Lives Matter should be fought on two fronts. Not just on police brutality and discrimination, but it also should be fought on the black on black crimes that exist. I don't care whether, my people see it and they're like, oh, well, yeah, you guys can. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? If you fight it, and we can fight that and help that, how many lives you can just save alone makes a big difference. You know what I mean? The killing in Chicago is pretty much, oh, well, he killed my friend. I'm going to revenge. I revenge that person. And then this person revenge on this person. So A kills B. B gets revenge and tries to kill A. Maybe kills A. And then C comes in and kills B. And then D comes in and kills who? C. It's going back and forth. And it was never ending. And a lot of it is also due to drugs as well, too. The drugs that are coming in directly, primarily from Mexico and other places, that are coming in. And, they're selling it, swinging it back and forth, and they're making a lot of money off of that. People, they're not selling drugs because, like I said, for food to eat. They're selling drugs because they want to make money. So that also fuels it as well, too. Territories, neighborhoods, and all that. That's what's going to happen. Greed is essentially part of it. It's embarrassing that we have to send in the federal, Donald Trump has to send in the federal police to go in there. You know what does that say in America? That they have to send in the federal army to go in. It's embarrassing because that sets a wrong precedence that black people themselves cannot even govern themselves. And that's not the case. Obviously, history has shown that black people can. But when things like these happen and then they send in the federal government, send in the federal police, that's the image that it looks. And I don't think a lot of black people sometimes are looking at how the world reacts or looks at them. You know what I mean? Now that's the unfortunate part. If we had a sense of a sense of understanding and care, how people look at us just as much as how we look at other people, I think things would probably be a lot better. Because you have a lot of other communities. Let's say, for instance, the Asian communities. I like to always compare. Yes, there are racism in the Asian communities and stuff, etc. If you want to say yes. But one thing about the Asian communities, they like to do things within certain control. They care about what the world sees them, just like they see us. You know what I mean? So, an Asian parents will always tell the kids, oh, be well behaved. Because the way the world sees you is different. You have to show yourself that, you're presentable. You know what I mean? So, within their communities, they set certain things. The community set certain standards that, they want everyone to be able to reach within that. For instance, let's take probably the highest Asian drug dealer. I remember this story not too long ago. An Asian drug I think it was like one of those. I guess I wouldn't say it's the level of like the big narcos, but he was like a big, shot within the Asian community as far as selling drugs and stuff like that. He stated that, what, we don't sell drugs in our community. That was shocking to me when I heard that. I was like, wow, they sold drugs. They made a lot of money off of it, but they never sold it within their communities. Why? Because they were not trying to destroy their communities. Instead, what they would do is they sold in the other communities. Everyone comes and figures out a way to be able to sell within the black community. You got these black guys, doing movies and shows, and I don't understand why black people always look up, not, and I'm not generalizing in that sense, but certain black people, I guess you could say the hood mentality, would do documentaries about these people as if they achieved some kind of American dream, men and women selling drugs. They realize that they destroyed entire communities, women, children that are affected by it today, mentally affected by it, because when you take those drugs, it affects the fetuses as well too. And it goes on and on and on. That's why we have so many problems with people walking around with mental issues in the black community today. All of that affects the community. Shows like Power, I feel like almost like it glamorizes drugs or drug dealing. It makes it almost like a normal thing. Mom and dad, they know what they're doing. They engage in the drug industry. They have kids. They're living a good life. They own clubs. It's a popular show, but it does glamorizes the industry. It's the same thing. Black people are selling within their own community and destroying their community. So when we destroy our community, as a result of that, the crime also increases within those communities. When it increases within those communities, kids are killing each other back and forth territories. And that's what's happening. And that's why I feel like this is so wrong. Why we have to have, at this point, it is necessary. They need to be treated like children if we have to. Like I always stated, that if I lived in that community, I wouldn't mind giving up a certain civil liberty for protection as far as for peace. The federal, army has to come there, stay there about a year, 2, 3 years, whatever, like they did in Iraq, and patrol to make sure that it's peaceful. Fine. I think sometimes we have to give up certain civil liberties in order to be able to get rid of these people that are creating the menace within the society, the hood menace. My argument is that black people should have been separated from the hood mentality a long time ago. Instead, intertwined, and they're making it look almost like it's glamorous. It's become basically like a hood. If you're black and you don't speak a certain way, or you don't act or dress a certain way, you're not considered black, in other words, which is completely wrong. It's stupid. Throughout centuries, thousands of years of black history, there was no hood mentality. Go back to the 1950s and 60s, there was no hood community mentality. Even the early 70s, there was no hood mentality. All of a sudden, an era comes in, we have hip hop and other aspect, and they call that a culture. And then also people start wearing, dressing certain ways and stuff like that. And drugs and guns and everything, people started thinking, oh, this is black. This is not black culture. The people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers and all these people that fought, they were alive today. Look at today, they wouldn't be like, what in the world is this? They'll be shocked and amazed because this is not what they fought. This is not how society was when they were alive. The aspect you see how whenever Martin Luther King, was extremely educated, obviously, Dr. Martin Luther King spoke very eloquently. Malcolm X, whenever he spoke very eloquently. They dress very eloquently. All these religious black, because the way you dress and carry yourself is the way people respect you. You never see Malcolm X walking around with baggies and showing his butt, like, oh, this is black culture. You never see Martin Luther King walking around with baggies and showing his butt. You never see, Medgar Evers, Frederick Douglass, and all these other great black leaders, some of them that I haven't even mentioned. walking around showing their butt. Just imagine if we were to look back in history, seeing them walking around, mothers looking, oh yeah, I have a dream, you know, or Malcolm X, educating ourselves and our families, by any means necessary. But he's dressed, so thuggish. Who would respect that? No, these people, Malcolm X was invited to colleges to speak on black families and the central role of the women in the family. How the father was essential also in the family as well. And dynamic how the black family, nucleus family, was necessary. And that's the problem. We need that nuclear black family. You know what I mean? And long ago, in African proverb, they say they took a village to raise a child. That doesn't exist today because everyone's like, "Oh, that's not my child." We don't have those type of neighborhoods anymore. Where if a kid did something bad, and the next door neighbor and the family would definitely discipline that child. Make sure that no, they carry themselves with respect. Even if the parents are not home, they respected themselves. You don't have that. And that's where we need to go back to that society. With the disrespect and children killing each other back and forth. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen these children bath mouthing and all that. All of that is part of the crime. Because you know what? When they're popping off and cursing and these parents stand up there laughing, ha 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 ha, that's tomorrow's criminal. You know what's that child's gonna become tomorrow? Because he's gonna look, his aspect of his life is gonna be different. They pretty much see life in society like almost like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I got to get money, and by any means, I'm gonna get that money by selling drugs, crack, get my connect. You know what I mean? That's how they see life, and they go through that life, and then they shooting each other and killing each other, and they're dead. Then the parents or the moms or whatever on TV cry, "Oh, my child was a good child. They didn't deserve this," and stuff like that. And you know damn well what they were doing. They were slamming drugs. They get themselves involved in that kind of criminal life. It's the same thing. The killing needs to stop. And who is it affecting the most? The innocent people, especially in Chicago. And Black Lives, I mean, the energy that we saw within Black Lives Matter, the energy that they showed almost every major city. It's the same energy they should be showing in every major crime city. Saying enough is enough. The children that are dying, the innocent mothers and grandmothers and grandpas and men and women, people that are dying constantly. This is happening within the black neighborhoods. I don't care if if you're protesting and Fox News was there, I'm like, haha, see what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Shouldn't matter. Ignore all of that. Fight and stop the crime within the neighborhoods. That's what's more important. That's what's important. How is it a small population of people within this country can have such a high crime rate? I can understand within white neighborhoods or within white societies, for instance, because they are the majority. Let's be real. So you would expect crime to be high within white society communities. That's a given. I'm not excusing it, but it's obvious. But within a small black population, so small, yet the crime rate is so high. This is not what black people stood for. Because we go back to the 1930s, 40s, 50s, the eras of the Black Wall Street. The black population was small, even smaller than it is now. Yet, their per capita. In some neighborhoods, the black population were actually far richer than their white counterparts. So it's not about population. It's about common sense. The crime, Black Wall Street, people will look today at Black Wall Street, proud of Black Wall Street, like, wow, there's so many Black Wall Streets out there as well, and they were destroyed. You know what? The people of Black Wall Street weren't walking around with their ass showing. They weren't killing each other and shooting each other because they weren't been able to accomplish any of the things that they have today. They had their own things. They did what they could do. They weren't killing each other. I'll probably focus on this on a different topic later on, but as of now, The topic is primarily on the killing that's happening in Chicago. And I'm going back into the past because that's where we need to look back, to move forward. Know your past, to know your future. And this senseless killing needs to stop. We need to look back at a time when all of this was not happening. It's not about poverty, it's about intellectual understanding. Because, listen, black people were poor, but they were not killing each other. So that's not an excuse to say that, well, poverty leads what leads to a crime. No, it's not. And if that's the case, there would be crime in every single place around the world. You have China today. China has a huge population. And the poverty level in certain parts of China is incredible. You'd be surprised, even with all the money and wealth they have today. They're not going around drive-bys and killing each other. You have poverty in India. Huge. If you go to some places, like, wow, that would make you even cry to see the state of children and the mothers and fathers and the state that people are going through. But they're not killing each other. If you go to some parts of South America, you have poverty level at such an extreme rate, but they're not killing each other at this rate. Only parts of South America and those countries where actually the crime is really high is the places where the drugs are very high. And like, for instance, in Brazil, where you have the drug problem, that leads to the gangs, and that's leading to the huge crime. Or in certain parts of, I'm not sure, I think it's Honduras, where the gang culture, which also is connected to the drugs, is what's leading to the crime. But in other parts where the poverty is, people are not killing each other because of that. People don't kill each other because of that. Go to Africa. Many countries in Africa, even though Africa is growing today, and probably has some of the fastest growing economies, and there are big metropolis cities and towns and being formed and stuff. I mean, it's beautiful. I've visited Africa. It's beautiful. There's still places where there's poverty, extreme poverty, but they're not grabbing guns and shooting and killing each other. Only time that happens is when it's greed. People want huge amount of money. They don't want that just a little money to survive. They want that big money. Having a nice car, luxury, and all this other stuff. That's what leads to that a lot of times. So there's no excuse to say that, well, poverty is right, therefore we need, it's excusable. Well, black crime is a rub because white people do it too. No, it's not. Forget about that. I don't care if white people jump on top of a building and kill themselves. Should we do the same thing? So why are we focusing on what white people do? We should be focusing on what we do. In the past, they were not looking at what white people do. They were looking at what they can do. Black Wall Street was not looking at what white people were doing it too. The white population, like I said, if you go back and Google and research, you'll find out that a lot of the white neighborhoods that were next to them were actually more poorer. But even then, they weren't killing each other. Anyway, I'm going to end this. Just pretty much please comment on the comment section if you have any questions, or if you feel like I said anything that's wrong, please, correct me, of course. And let's go on, stay from there to the next show.